Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Pillars of Freedom podcast. And I am so excited to have a very special guest on today. We have Ms. Jackeline Torres, who is part of our Oasis community and who continues to inspire the people already in and attract wonderful talent. And I want to bring her on because she is such an inspiring character, someone who comes from a very different background than most of us here in the U.S., and who has something that we all truly want, which I think is true freedom. And in this case, Pillars of Freedom supporting ultimate lifestyle freedom by learning how to control your time, income, and location. And Ms. Jacqueline, thank you for coming on again. And do you mind just sharing with our audience for like 2, 3 minutes a little bit about your background?
Yes, absolutely. Well, first of all, just thank you for inviting me here, and it's really an honor. It's really fun to do things like this and to share my story and just a bit of what I've been going through. But yeah, basically, my background is first of all, I'm 25 years old. I am Venezuelan. I'm raised and born and raised in Venezuela. And yeah, basically, I've had a very different life than what I have right now. A very different perspective. I was raised under the, follow this path basically like ideal for all or even like most of my life. I'm heavily into like academics. I hold an architecture degree from Berkeley, but post graduation basically my world shifted. I was this baby postgraduate that just got my first job and that had the experience in the adult world, and basically it kicked my ass. Excuse the French, but like it was really interesting to see the real world and how much I liked and disliked at the same time. So quickly after learning how I was really as an adult, I started realizing that I didn't want to be, I guess, subjected to somebody else's rules. And that's basically how everything started for me. My mind started shifting. I started meeting different people, having like amazing like virtual connections all of a sudden. And basically I started becoming an entrepreneur. Like I'm still a really beginner on it, but that's basically the journey that I've been on right now, and it's been incredible. It breaks me down every day and it builds me back up at the same time.
Sure. Well, thank you for sharing that. And I guess one of the questions that I have is, it sounded like for a sector that, as you mentioned, you got into like the adult world where you it sounded like getting your first job out of like your post graduation, you started to make some realizations that this was not really the life that you wanted. And you mentioned kind of living by someone else's rules, and then you started talking about experience with Elevate, and I want to get into how you really just kind of discovered that opportunity and how it began to transform your life. But can you tell a little bit about what do you mean by not really wanting to live that way? And it sounds like probably as an employee, right, in your first job.
Yes, exactly. So one of the things that you do in school, at least in my major, like in architecture, is really express yourself, right? Like architecture is, it's a mix of like technicals and like art, right? So we got to express ourselves really, vividly in college. And for example, I didn't really sleep for like 2 years, being in Berkeley, and I loved every minute of it. So my freedom was my choice, right? Like the freedom, like the ability to choose what I wanted to do with my time, even if it was, finishing the final project for the deadline or something. So when I got to what I call the adult world is what I mean, it's like when you actually get to realize that you no longer have that freedom and that you have to follow somebody else's either rules or paths or visions because you are obviously an employee, right? Not only because of being an employee, but you don't really get to create that much. That's what it was for me. Like I wasn't working on my own visions, on my own designs, on my own things. And that's totally okay. I was just, a postgraduate, just an entry level, but it just wasn't my passion. So when I realized that I was spending my time doing something I didn't enjoy, or spending my time doing something that maybe I enjoyed, but I didn't really enjoy like the outcome, like the way it was, being made, I just realized, I'm not supposed to be here. I'm supposed to be doing something else with my life. I'm supposed to smile on a daily basis. And that's just not what I had when I had, that job, like that particular experience. So that's basically how I see it. Like freedom to me is, the ability to choose, and I chose to quit it, and I chose to adventure myself. So I guess I got to Elevate by chance. Would you like me to go into that right now?
Yeah, absolutely. And especially, from the background of where, like, at your job, you're basically doing someone else's, not just work, but fulfilling their dreams and their personal expression and not your own. Can you talk a
Correct.
little bit about the transition? Because we get to see, okay, you're very self-expressive and you weren't getting that with your job. What did you see in Elevate? How did you find it? And what did you see in the Elevate opportunity and the Oasis opportunity that really kind of clicked for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So basically, this is how it happened. I was in a pretty low like mental state by the end of my year at that job. It's just simply because I was really not enjoying it. I even had anxiety. I was depressed. I couldn't like work out my work life balance really well. So I started doing something that a lot of people start doing, which is Google stuff. How do I change my reality right now? Like, how do I manage work life? How do I deal with anxiety at my job? And like those things sort of led me to this mindset account on Instagram. I cannot remember its name. And the funniest thing happened. I was just checking the stories and I found a link to Elevate. It wasn't an ad. It wasn't a paid advertisement. So I find my story very unique for that regard. I clicked on it for no reason, apparently. I saw the landing page. I was like, what is this? I don't really like it. But then I kept clicking on it. I kept like inputting my info. And for some reason, on a Wednesday night, Tuesday night, I can't recall. I ended up watching the whole thing. It was like 2 hours. And, the feeling that I got from this guy was that he understood what I was going through, because my family, for example, at the moment was like, oh, well, you're just starting, in a few years you're going to feel better. Or my peers at my job were just like, yeah, I know how you feel, but just put up with it. So this guy actually made me feel like he understood the pain, the depression, the anxiety. I even had like a panic attack from my job at some point. And yeah, I mean, that's basically how I got started with Elevate. Like, I booked a call. I had no idea it was going to be a sales call or anything. I had no idea what affiliate marketing was or anything. And even with no idea, I just had two options in front of me. One was, okay, I'm going to spend this amount of money, and what if they're scammers? Well, I lose it and I can make it back. Or I can spend this amount of money, my life can actually potentially change. So I chose this one, and that's exactly what happened. Like, my life shifted from the very moment I made that decision. And even though I was still at my job, because I hadn't quit just yet, I was all of a sudden like fulfilled, like happy with that decision, just because I saw progress in my journey. I saw like, yeah, I'm doing this. And then like a month later, I was like, on a Friday night, I was being requested for overtime for a project, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna quit. So that's how it happened. It was very sudden. I didn't plan for anything. It was a gut feeling, really. It was one of those amazing, you have to do this sort of feeling.
Yeah, and then I can certainly relate where you don't want to spend any more time at work, and especially when you see that, even though like someone as close as family says stick it out, things will get better, that you won't like yourself in the process. And yeah, I totally get that, where it's like the gut feeling of like, I have to quit now and make change now, or I'm just going to end up basically settling for becoming someone less than I know it can be. And
Yes.
yeah, that is so interesting. Now, I know I've heard so many different stories from people outside of the Elevate community who say that, well, I left my job only after I had a certain amount of financial security. It sounds
Yeah.
like you made your decision pretty quick. Can you kind of describe what your financial picture was? Because that was, to me, it sounds like it was not hardly a consideration so much as just your mindset on, I needed to make change right now.
Yes, you're absolutely correct. I get asked this a lot. And yes, I mean, it is often like recommended that, that you either have like a large savings account before you quit your job, before you quit anything that's, providing you an income, or that you really have like a plan structured. And I was really neither of those. Like I had some savings in my account. I think at the moment I did think it was more than I was gonna need, to be honest. I was like overestimating that amount a little bit, but at the same time, I didn't need to, if I had no savings, I was still gonna make the same decision. And why? That's because I really heavily, like mentally, emotionally, like physically, I needed it. I needed to make the decision to smile. I was in a very like low emotional position, so I just needed that change, and I was not going to be the one interfering in my own change, in my own shift. So for me, even as maybe as irresponsible as it sounds, maybe having it not be the most recommended path to follow, it was what I needed to do. And again, I go back to, it was a gut feeling. Like when I told my dad, for example, he's one of the people that I trust the most. I admire him so much, but he's a really like heavy structure salary guy. I told him, he almost got a heart attack. I was like, how are you gonna quit your job? Like, what do you mean? But I just had to go with it. I had some emotional support through my dad, and I had some financial support through some fund I had in my savings account. And I just did it like that, and it's really funny because I am really grateful for that. If I had waited until I had more funds to really, advertise or do whatever I had to do, I think I wouldn't even be here talking to you. I think what happened to me, for me, and around me was exactly how it needed to happen, and I'm super grateful for it. So I just went by gut. That's gonna be my answer.
Yeah, that is awesome. One, it sounds like you're the kind of gal who it's like you the sheer fact that you had such, it sounds like, confidence in yourself that it's like, even if I quit, even the things that give other people around me confidence, like a job, for example, you still had the internal confidence to say, I can still get it done. Even though this whole world is going to be entirely new to me, I can't live the way I have been. So, as much confidence as you had, what did starting your business and really starting that that Oasis Elevate journey, what did that look like after you took the leap of faith?
Right. Well, after the leap of faith, came the reality. So, in Elevate, we have this foundation portion where it's just, just based on showing people what they can expect. And I'm never going to forget the graph where it goes like, I believe it goes as in optimism, and then pessimism, something like that. I totally forget. The whole point of the graph is that you really have no idea what's going on, but you're super excited about it. Then you go to what they call the valley of despair, and then you realize like, oh, this is actually harder than what it's gonna be like. And then you go into, being informed, but being sort of like wary about what can happen. So that's exactly what happened to me. Like basically, I started as this newbie, just like SpongeBob. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna do it. And then I realized that it was harder than what I thought it would be. I realized that it was more expensive than what I thought it would be. And I realized that, for example, Oasis, like Elevate, the whole crew, the whole team, the whole company was like shifting at the same time. Like we shifted from ClickFunnels to not ClickFunnels, or vice versa, I forget. And, as strangely as it seems, I did feel overwhelmed in a lot of areas, a lot of periods in my journey with Elevate so far. But I was always like, I'm here for a reason. I was super overwhelmed. Even there was a point where, I tested so many audiences, so many things in the marketing aspect of things that, I just ran out of funds. And that's when the second amazing thing happened. I joined the sales team. I was not expecting to do that. So yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I was terrified for a lot of it. Writing was new to me. Making videos, months after, was new to me. Like sharing anything really was new to me. I was always like some sort of a hidden artist, because of architecture and all of that. And I realized that I was already starting my way to freedom. I was already on a level. I was already free because I wasn't where I didn't want to be anymore. So yeah, overwhelmed and terrified of maybe with not the amount of money that I needed. But again, I was just so glad for being there, so glad for the bad basically. But yeah, I mean, this is not for anyone that's just gonna expect the easiest route, or anyone that's gonna really want to, just make it in 2 weeks. Like, just doesn't work like that. So I realized that it was scary, but I was okay with it.
Yeah, well, and I think that perfectly describes the leap of faith. That is so interesting that even in the, like, it sounds amidst of a new chaos, that you're still able to say with confidence that you achieved a new level of freedom. And now that so as far as I could tell from, different posts and seeing how you've engaged it, and especially how, you responded to the questionnaire before this episode, it sounds like freedom again has gone to the next level. It sounds like, especially after you started with the Rise team, that you've been able to continue to grow your freedom. And do you mind kind of sharing with the listeners, um, how, starting off with, like, the transition between Oasis, chaos in learning and running out of funds, and joining the Rise team? Can you share how that new experience has helped you kind of reach to this next level of freedom?
Yes, absolutely. So basically, how I see, myself and my journey is that every 2 or 3 months I get like a shift. That's how I see it. And it's very interesting because I started, Elevate, ran out of budget, joined Rise, a sales team. And that was a complete change of pace. It was a complete, you know, like I was learning new things. I was talking to even more like different people than I was before, just with Elevate. Like I was talking to people on the phone, a lot. I believe I talked to about maybe about like 500 strangers basically, and it was amazing. So that happened, I believe, around 3 months into Elevate. So I paused Elevate to join Rise, the sales team again. And what that accomplished for me was like, I guess like another like step in confidence. And to me, that's another step in freedom, right? So I was able to communicate better to people. I was able to help people, closing deals or no, or not closing deals. Like, it was just like such an amazing experience to talk to people on the phone, listen to their stories, and sometimes share a little bit of mine, and just generate a shift in their minds. And that was amazing. Like, every time you do something for someone, it's like you're doing it to yourself at the same time. It's like a karmic relationship in a good and a bad way. So at some point, I had a similar feeling with Rise as I had with my previous job, not in the detrimental way, but in the way of like, yeah, I got what I needed to get here. I gave what I needed to give, and I'm ready for something else. It was again a gut feeling. Like, I remember that happened about like in January or February when I decided to quit the sales team. And I was like, yeah, okay, once again, I am, you know, not escaping, but like I was like going away from something that was giving me income for absolutely no reason other than I'm not feeling it anymore. And if I'm not feeling it, then somebody else has to like essentially like fill my shoes, right? So that's when I got here to Medellin, and that was amazing. That was incredible, because what happened after I quit the team was enormous growth. I can't even like explain like how it worked, what it felt like. I met Andrew sort of by mistake, like sort of by chance here in Medellin. I had no idea he was here. I started doing business coaching with him. I started, really making the YouTube videos, which I was so super self-conscious about, like making videos, being on camera, like talking, like super weird, super new to me. And that's really, again, when I felt another shift, when I was like, okay, I am confirming that quitting Rise happened when it needed to happen. And that shift working with Andrew, happened again. And when I stopped the business coaching with Andrew, then something else happened. And it's just like that, for me, it's been like every 3-4 months I get a gut feeling and I do something, and I don't know if it's luck or not, but it's been working out, tremendously well in the mental health scenario, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so funny that you mentioned, you experience these kind of gut feelings, really these kind of crossroads every like 3-4 months, because if I can be honest, that's exactly what I experienced too. So it's really interesting to me, one, that you would say that, like, even quitting something that had been initially transformative, like the Rise team, that it would open up new doors with Andrew, and that not quitting for the sake of disliking, but just feeling like you needed change. I think that's really interesting, because I think a lot of people might try to convince themselves, well, this worked for me before, it should continue working for me. But you took a different approach. You were like, I saw how it started, but I'm seeing how it's ending, and I have enough trust and faith that as long as I keep moving forward, good things will happen. Even though obviously the path ahead is not clear. That is so. I guess. Do you feel like you're at a crossroads again right now, or at least where you've been recently? And if so, where do you kind of see like the next opportunities coming up? Because you just mentioned that you're in Medellin and you had coaching with Andrew. Where do you feel the direction is going now, especially in your pursuit of freedom?
Right. So as of right now, I actually just went past, or I'm sort of still like going past this, new gut feeling I had. I was talking to this friend a few weeks ago, and I told her, dude, something big is gonna happen, and I have no idea what it is. And I don't even know why I said that. I don't even know why I was feeling like that. But funny thing, I was contacted by this recruiter in the architecture world, and he basically like opened like a mental door for me to like consider what's up with my career, what's up with my major, what's up with my interest in architecture and all of this. So I ended up not ever talking to him, like nothing ever happened, but just curiosity hit me, and I started wondering, like, wow, I've been off my thing for basically a year now. What do I do to not forget what I learned in college, what I learned in that job, that was hard, but it was at the same time great because it taught me so much. So this happened. I opened Indeed, the site where you just like look for jobs, and within 2 minutes I found this amazing, what sounded like an amazing opportunity in this company, in this architecture firm in California. And I swear I spent about 2 weeks just deciding if I had the guts to apply to it. I had the feeling that that if I did it, something big was gonna happen, or what if I got it? I was afraid of even like getting the job. So interestingly enough, I prepared the application. I made a video actually for them, just like telling a bit of my story, basically something like this, but way shorter. And I had 2 interviews with them. I went through that process. It was so weird for me to like come back to being okay with the fact that I may potentially be working with somebody else, under a schedule and all of that. So fast forward, like, bottom line, I didn't even get the job, but the experience that I had through that journey, in my opinion, was incredible, because it made me feel okay with working with someone else. It made me feel okay with, with the corporate world, but in the right way, in the right direction, like with what I wanted to do, with the project that I could be passionate about, with a team that I could feel, amazing working with. So all of that just happened. And it made me realize that affiliate marketing is great, but it's not my passion. It's not what I was born to do. It's just a stepping stone. So I had this meeting with Andrew like 2 or 3 days ago. We're just talking a little bit, like, I made a testimonial for Elevate. So he was giving this out for the people that made a testimonial. We were talking about why people actually join something like Elevate. And, for some people, it's the freedom. For some people, it's the marketing skills. For some people, it's both. So we realized that for me, it was the freedom. So I became what I'm calling like an investor. So I guess what I'm saying with all of this is that as of right now, I am trying to figure out how to come back to architecture, how to apply what I'm actually passionate about, how to be basically an artist and still be an investor and still be an entrepreneur and still, like have the best of both worlds. Like, I'll be honest with you, I want it all. I don't know how I'm gonna get it all, but I want everything. And I think everyone should look at life that way. You shouldn't have to choose one or the other. You should be able to have everything that you want, as long as you're not, being greedy or hurting anyone. Like, just go for it, right? So that's what just happened right now. That was my other like big shift. And as of right now, Cody, I'm just trying to figure it out. I'm just trying to, I'm taking some tennis classes, some swimming classes, some drawing classes, and I'm about to start this design project that I've been wanting to start for a long time, actually, since I was a kid. And I'm terrified of starting it, but with the right support system, with the right like mentality, with Andrew telling me, hey, just do it, just start it. I'm gonna do it. So that's where I am at right now. And again, it's terrifying, but it's amazing at the same time. It makes me smile.
I can tell, and yeah, and you have a beautiful smile too, if I could say that.
Thank you.
It's so interesting that you mentioned that, because I think some people would be kind of turned off by the fact that if they saw this and they were in Oasis or they were in Elevate and they heard that someone in Elevate or Rise had left the team and they feel like that was a better decision, they might get the wrong impression. But I want to affirm something here, and it's the fact that it's exactly what you said, I think, where this was a stepping stone. And if true lifestyle freedom, being able to unlock time, money, or location, if that's the real goal, it's not to have those things, and it's not to have necessarily the vehicle to do those things alone. It's to help you continue to grow from there, right? So I can only imagine that your conversation with Andrew went something like this. This was a part of your journey. It wasn't the end of your journey, right? So that is so cool. I think that you are using this experience to continue to grow in those areas that it looks like just continue to resonate with you, like in architecture and design. You said something there, and you identify as an investor. And I want to dig into that, because we all see that wealth comes through investing in people, investing in ourselves, and investing in the things that continue to make returns. And for you, someone who invests in people, like continuing to inspire the community, and someone who, as you mentioned in the questionnaire, want to be basically an inspiration and a source for your family. I'm kind of curious, where do you see yourself investing and why? Because I think that word can be taken so differently if you look at only a financial standpoint, but I think for you, it means so much more than that.
Yes, you're absolutely right. I'll be honest, I'm still like on the way of figuring that out, like on really like refining that answer for myself. But yeah, as of right now, I mean, the investments that I'm making are, well, one, giving time to myself to actually do things that I always wanted to do and just never even either like had the guts to, or I just didn't do them for some reason. And on the financial standpoint, well, right now I'm investing in Elevate again, but like I am not, running ads per se. I'm not, like doing the show as it's, as a step by step for most people. I decided to just invest. So I just did, I'm doing the flight program right now. And I decided that, I trust these people enough to allow them to use my credit card to run my ads and to see what happened. And what happened, I already just got my first sale, like 2 days ago, and it felt amazing. So on the financial side, that's what I'm investing in. In the near future, I want to invest in, I've always wanted to, run short-term rentals and Airbnb and things like those. So in the short term, I want to invest in, I guess that would be just real estate, buy apartments, like maybe utilize my own like artistic traits to decorate them, to like make it a mix of the things that I enjoy. And then in the time side, it's just what I mentioned before, like since I was a kid, I've been wanting to learn tennis. And because I've been in college and then I had my job and then I was depressed and I had this and that, like I just never did it. I never gave it time. And right now I'm starting and I'm so happy, so investing, like the word in itself, it means that you give something, you get something back. That's pretty much it, doing good for yourself, doing good for someone else. It's not just money. So those are my two sides of the coin right now. And again, I'm still like figuring out how else to invest, what else to invest in. But just like you said, like investing in yourself should really be the number one thing. And that doesn't mean buy a new car. That means do something that makes you happy, give yourself something that makes you happy. And that's pretty much it. And as you grow, if you're in the right place, in the right state of mind, you're going to help people that you love and that people that are around you grow as well. Like every time I talk to someone from the Rise group and I get something like, hey, you're good, like thanks for helping or thanks for listening, like that's investing in myself. I put time and effort into like maybe just listening to them or whatever, I'm just talking about like friends. And then that reward, those words of support, I guess, like that's my investment. So it's a whole mix of things. It has a corny side, not the corny side, but yeah, that would be it. I'm trying to figure out exactly where to go, and I'm having fun with the path so far.
Good. Well, I'm so glad to hear that you're still having fun, even though you're finding out what those directions look like. And yeah, I love the way you put like investing. It's expecting something. It's certainly the aspect of like giving, but you're also expecting returns. But here's the thing: you don't sound entitled to the returns. You simply sound grateful. Is that? I mean,
Yeah,
am I
no,
interpreting that right?
no,
I mean,
no, yeah,
it doesn't.
you're correct. You're correct. I'm grateful because the community that I've been able to build is something I never really felt I had before, right? So as long as you don't expect and feel entitled to something, but you still get it, it just makes you feel like yeah, I'm doing something good. It's like just affirmations, pretty much. It's just like validation, I guess. Like, yeah, that was actually good.
Absolutely. Well, that is super cool. I'm kind of curious. So, like, with some of those things that you mentioned, like tennis, drawing, swimming, uh, what are some of those fun returns that you're getting right now? Because I know in your questionnaire you mentioned swimming, but that you can't swim. So, do you want to kind of talk about some of like the fun side of your investments, the things that you're
Yeah,
investing in yourself with that maybe you couldn't get done while you were working the job and just coming out of college?
yeah, absolutely. So here's one example. When I was in college, I had this amazing group of friends, right? And just naturally when you graduate, people start doing their own things. Some are in LA, someone, some other are like in different countries. Like, I flew the country basically. I'm here in Colombia. So I kind of lost touch when I got my job. I didn't really have time or energy or, again, like mental health, I guess, to even like make new friends. So like for a whole year, I was like in that state of like just, drive to work, be there and not really enjoy it, then come back and be too tired to go to the gym. And that was pretty much it. Like my social life was my niece who lived with me at the moment and my boyfriend at the moment. That was it. So right now, one of the best things that I have is that I am losing my social anxiety, right? I'm losing that side of me that was like scared of approaching people and making friends. So with swimming, for example, I just had one class. I have to like schedule my classes for next week. But, I didn't know the guy. I really didn't know what he did or anything. And like, I realized that I just went to class and I enjoyed it. I had a fun conversation with them. Like he taught me the movements and stuff like that. I could finally like, you know, blow bubbles underwater and stuff like that, so to not drown. So that's the kind of fun, for me. It's been like seeing myself having these like new awesome interactions with people that I didn't really like know before, and also just being able to unlearn things to learn new things. In this case, swimming, I didn't really have to unlearn anything, but just learning to make the bubbles underwater, like that's fun, and like a cool, shot could come out of it, like a cool like video could come out of it, like why not? And with tennis, for example, it's also amazing because for example, my instructor, he's 20 years old, he's 5 years younger than me, and you would think that that's just not how life goes, like when you're the teacher, you're usually older and more experienced and all of that, but you realize that doesn't really matter. So with tennis is like making the physical effort, and also leaving that social anxiety, and also like allowing myself to be coachable, allowing myself to leave any sort of anxiety, any sort of entitlement, any sort of like, yeah, I know what you mean, I can do it. Like, no, you just have to sit down and listen. So I think I went on a tangent there. I may be like shifting the subject a little bit, but that's that's what I'm getting from these classes, from these like new things. And as I go and take new classes and start like realizing what I like, more than the other thing, that's how I know I'm gonna choose my next investments and my next, ways of spending time. Like, who knows? I may potentially, who knows, at some point, I don't know, be in a tennis competition. Like, who knows? That would be amazing. I'm just open to it. So the whole thing is helping me like socially and mentally more than just physically, if that makes sense.
Definitely. That makes total sense. And you know what I love? You might have considered it a tangent, but I really think it's just the next topic. And you mentioned this in your questionnaire, and I'm so glad you brought it up again, but having to unlearn some things. And it sounds like just from the way that you were kind of pre-framed, as a kid, and especially going to school, and a very notable school, UC Berkeley, it sounds like, there's this very structured part of your life. And post-grad, you're having to kind of learn what it means to be a self-expressive person, a very creative and passionate person in a structured world. But how do you really kind of find the harmony of self-expression and living a structured life? And it sounds like some of the challenges have really been, okay, how do I still maintain, some of my self-image, but really how do I break some of these beliefs? And it sounds like a lot of your recent investments, like blowing bubbles underwater, have been an investment in breaking down a lot of those, maybe just the barriers that in years past you might not even recognized, like social anxiety, for example. Sounds like a major barrier being broken. Can you talk a little bit about how you've seen yourself progress over the maybe even like the last 5-6 years, from the point of coming from a very structured lifestyle, especially as an architecture student, to now what it's looking like unlearning a lot of those, I guess you could say, like those either bad habits or bad self-images that you're finding now is like unlocking a whole new version of you. Do you mind kind of sharing some of your transition in that?
Yeah,
Unlearning?
yeah, of course. Unlearning. So yeah, unlearning is actually something that I just read in an Instagram post, maybe like a week ago or something like that. And obviously I reposted because I was like, whoa, this is next level. So yeah, I mean, let's say like in the last 5-6 years, right? So I basically, I graduated high school in Venezuela. I started architecture in Venezuela. A year in my major, in my career, I decided I didn't want to be there anymore. So I moved to the States. It was a whole shock to my dad, to the rest of my family, like, oh, you're leaving. So that made like the first like big shift, adapting to new surroundings, a new language, because obviously, English is my second language. Just doing things differently, like really stepping out of my comfort zone. And that was like, step one, like that started to build me as I see it. Then, I went through community college and I got to Berkeley. And then when I got to Berkeley, I realized that, wow, the world is so huge, right? So for example, Berkeley does this, what they call the Golden Bear orientation, for newcomers, for freshmen, and for like new transfer students. And the orientation lasts like a week. One of the things that they did fabulously, in my opinion, was this event called Bear Territory. They put us all in a stadium, and they made us, I forget exactly how it went, but it was basically like they made us repeat certain affirmations and certain questions. And it was like asking us all, like thousands of new students, to close our eyes and listen to the questions and then answer by just standing up. So it was things like, I am, I don't know, I am not straight, for example, like something uncomfortable like that, or I am a first generation student, or I come from a background of huge poverty. Like, I forget the questions, but it was something like that. So every time someone got up, they asked us to, okay, open your eyes and realize how many people here are different than you. So I guess what I'm trying to portray here is that Berkeley started teaching me about diversity, right? That's one of the main things. I started to essentially have like shocks with myself, trying to get myself out of biases, out of things that are just taught in my culture, like not just like in my house, but like in my whole culture, as Latin American culture, the Venezuelan culture, like that whole thing. And that was a shock to me, made me feel super uncomfortable like a lot of the times. I was like, oh, this is good and this is bad, this is right and this is wrong. And then I started realizing that's not how it went. So Berkeley kind of like unlocked the first door. It was like a little tiny, mouse door that I went through. Then after my job, after graduating, getting my job and coming to Medellin, and I met people here that were just so open to so many things. That was like the big giant door for me. So that's been a huge part of my transformation, and that's how I really see that I unlearned things to learn new things, or to even like learn the same things, but in a different way, or on a different level, on a higher level. So it's just that, like that, people change you, like that communication, that interaction with people that are different, but like vastly different than you, coming from different places, college or no college, or Venezuela or European, or like whatever, right? Like you start realizing that the world is, gigantous, gigantic, and humongous. I call it gigantous. So yeah, that's how it really went. Like as of right now, I am super different than who I used to be a year ago, even just 6 months ago, because I've been trying to actively learn, right? I met this amazing group of women here in Medellin, also men, but like mostly women. All of them are older than me. All of them, they see me as like this old soul or whatever. And, that's amazing, because the very first post that I ever made with him, like on Instagram, I put, I am going to learn from them. I am actively choosing to learn at least one thing from each and every one of them. And I've seen that happening, because it's an intention. So on learning to learn, very, very important thing for everyone.
That is so cool. And yeah, oh my gosh. And as someone who, as they continue to like explore new associations as I do, and as others in our community do, it is amazing, isn't it? Like how even challenged we are in our biases, things that we don't even realize that we're doing. You mentioned that you said that you're probably a totally different person, or like vastly different from who you were even 6 months ago. Let's rewind it a year ago. Summer of 2020. How would you describe yourself? And then how would you describe yourself now in contrast? I think it'd be really important for listeners to get an idea of how big this transformational gap really is.
Yeah. So that's big. That's really big. So that's basically, I believe, around the time that COVID started. So how I changed. First of all, I changed internally as to like how I felt about myself. Like at that moment, I was just not sure where I wanted to go. Not that I'm really sure right now, but I had a lot of self-doubt, a lot of what am I supposed to do? And a lot of like, that was around the time where either I made my decision to join Elevate, or I was about to, one of the two. That was a shock to me to even try to accept that I wasn't doing architecture anymore how I always planned. I chose architecture when I was 14 years old. So how my dad always planned it, like, it was a shock to me to realize that. So I guess one of the big things that shifted in me was the need to know what was going to happen, the need to plan, the need to follow something. And that was, that was really huge for me to like kind of like lose that, like I like a certain like level of planning right now, but I'm also like, all right, it happened for a reason. Let's just go, no fairy tale, but also like just don't just don't dwell into it too much. So that was one of the things. Like I had a lot of self-doubt. That translates to not enough confidence. Like I feel a lot more confident right now. Like I always had this inner confidence, but not really outer confidence. And I'm building my outer confidence right now. Like again, just being here is like a new thing for me, right? Just talking to you. So that was one of the major shifts. And you would be surprised. I'm assuming you've actually experienced this potentially. Just how much that alone changes everything around you. Everything. Like just being open to certain conversations, just allowing yourself not to be triggered by someone disagreeing with you, for example. Like those things change your whole life. And I am still learning to do that. I'm still like progressing on all of these things. But yeah, 1 year ago, I was not this person. I don't know how to describe myself, but I was just not where I wanted to be. And right now, at least I see that I'm so much more so much closer, I guess. I see myself on the way. And before, I didn't see it. I saw it when I was in college, but then post college, I was just lost in a sea of who am I? Like when you want to be extraordinary in some area and in something like, and you feel like you're just like following everyone else's path, you feel so much anxiety. And I don't have that anymore. Whatever anxiety I have is like, oh, something big is gonna happen again. I have to figure it out. But yeah, that's basically it. So I would say self-doubt would be the main thing.
Wow. Well, yeah, that sounds like quite a transformation. And even just your posture sitting there, it just tells me that you're comfortable. And the fact that you say that you're still overcoming like a social anxiety, I can say, having also been somebody who has anxiety in social situations, I can tell you. I mean, I don't even have to see you or like pictures of you from a year ago. It's already like an amazing growth, because you're
Thank
totally
you.
right when it comes to like uh, how self-doubt continues to like creep in, where you might have like kind of a certain, almost like a naive self-confidence. It's like I built up this image of who I can be and who I should be, but when it comes to like applying it and giving it out to other people, it just never connects, you know. um,
Yeah.
that is so interesting, especially when you talk about like how you have basically considered yourself an architect and like built your life, literally designed your life, and a number of like your associations, like your father's, around being an architect. And then as soon as you got into the actual role of being an architect, and you found kind of like the dichotomy of this is the identity I've always wanted, but I can't stand how it's being fulfilled. Is it fair to say that now
Yeah.
you're kind of reforming that identity, but now in a way where it's going to be uniquely you? Does that seem like it's going to be a fair assessment and a fair assessment of how
Yeah.
things might look?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I am trying to like figure out exactly how to do it, but I know that for sure that's my goal right now. Like I'm clear on that I want to be in that, in that topic and that subject of architecture. I'm clear on that, like super clear on that right now. And I am clear on how I don't want to do that. Right. So my path right now is I'm figuring out how to start, who can help me, but yeah, you're absolutely right. Like my identity was following the plan, and now my identity is more like, I'm capable of doing anything. I just have to find that thing that really makes me feel like I want to do it. Because when I find it, I'm going to excel. if it comes from here, if it comes from like, I really want to, I am going to do it. I am going to excel. And that, that's something that when you reach that point, I guess no one can take that away from you. So yeah, you're absolutely right.
Very cool. Well, I love the fact that you feel like as long as it's like truly genuinely you, and it's something that like you want to pursue, that you have the total confidence that you're gonna do it. And I won't bug you anymore about the topic of where you think you're gonna go, because obviously, I mean, it's a process of discovery right now. And uh, it's so funny. I'm trying to remember where I heard the phrase, but the phrase goes something like, uh, when the student is ready, the master shows up. And it just seems like you're preparing your heart right now. You already know a big decision's on the way. You're just kind of looking for where it's going to come from. And I hope that later on down the road, we can have another episode like this and we can really kind of find out for ourselves what that really looks like. Um,
Yeah,
Jacqueline, I
absolutely.
want to be respectful of your time. So I have, just a couple more questions that I'd like to ask you. But
Yeah.
do you have, uh, do you think there are any questions that I should have asked? Anything that maybe I should have maybe explored more or asked you about before I kind of wrap up the podcast?
Anything that you should have asked? Well, I don't know if should have is the correct term, but something that's coming up is, you asked me what I felt when after I took the leap of faith into Elevate, into, entrepreneurship and all of that. I guess something that's missing is what to do when you find out, what to do when you figure it out. Because like for me, it was, the whole informed pessimism, like uninformed optimism, valid despair, like all of that path. I believe most people go through that, but at the same time, we all have a different outcome to how we feel when we figure that out. So I guess something that's important for people to, to really like pay attention to at the very least, and like to journal about, to think about, to talk about, is how they are feeling once they figure that out. Once they're feeling, when they're like, oh, yes, this is harder than I thought. This was not exactly what I was expecting. And also being okay with their final decision. Because like a lot of people go through that and just decide, okay, this is not for me, but they just kind of like leave feeling unaccomplished. And I don't know if this should have or shouldn't have been a question from you, but I guess something I want to point out is it's okay. However you feel, it's okay. Like whatever decision you make is okay. Like nothing is really a failure. Like failure is basically death. I was just watching this short clip by Simon Sinek saying that he doesn't like the word failure. He likes the word fall, because it's true. We fall, we fall, we fall, then we get up. Like that's pretty much it. So, my particular decision was that I felt bad about how I was dealing with Elevate and the whole process for some time, even with Rise, which is part of the reason that I quit Rise. But then again, I made a decision to feel okay with that, to be okay with feeling not okay. So I think that's important for people. I think it's really like a huge part of the journey. Like if you don't feel it, don't do it. That's fine. You don't have to be a failure for that. So I guess that's just something that I wanted to share.
Well, that's awesome. And I think that's so cool that you decided that you were going to be okay even if you didn't feel okay. And that to me just tells me mind over matter, and in the pursuit of self-mastery, it's really the decisions you make, not just how you feel about something. And that, I think that is so cool. I guess one of my final questions, Jacqueline, is like if as you continue your journey, undoubtedly you're going to make some phenomenal discoveries. Where can these people, these wonderful listeners, find more of you? So they can find you, follow you, and continue to grow with you. Where can they find you?
Yeah, of course. Well, I'm always open on Instagram. Like Instagram has been so much fun for me, especially since I got here to Medellin. So it would just be Torres Pollock. would be Torres and Polo, then a C. On Instagram, it's public, so like I want like to share, how I'm feeling, like my life, the good and the bad. I guess obviously people share more of the good, more of the fun stuff, but like, that's where they can find me. That's where I talk to, like, most of my friends. I love sharing memes, especially, like, so yeah, I mean, if someone wants to connect for whatever reason, for whatever decent reason, then yeah, let's just do it, right? That's where I spend like most of my social media time, on Instagram.
Very cool. And I guess my final question is, for all the people and the course creators who have, really just kind of created the environments, like those like Andrew, Steve, Mike, from the Elevate crew, especially, but also those like Jake from Rise. If you could say anything to those folks, what would you tell them?
The only thing, and I've told Andrew this, is number one, I don't see you as a god, and that's great, right? And number two, do it if you feel like it, if you feel like doing it. So why do I say this? Because I've had, these talks with Andrew, and like actually when I met him, I was like, hey, you're not my god. He was like, yeah, great, that's amazing. He loved hearing that, and I loved hearing that he loved hearing it. It's like a confirmation that he's not in it for any sort of like popularity or fame or whatever, right? And the second thing is, just to elaborate, is that if you really are enjoying it, if you really enjoy, like for Andrew, owning the whole thing, for Jake, running the sales team, for Alex from Alpha, for example, like, running these communities, like I would say, if you feel it, then really like pour your heart out into it, not just time, but like let other people know that this is so freaking important to you, because that's validation to all the community members, that really makes us feel like we're a group, like we're a family, that we're a community, so that would be the main thing, just, I guess, do it out of heart, as corny as that sounds. And I always used to say this, as corny as that sounds, in calls when I was in Rise. It's true. Only do it if you feel like it, because if not, the community members are going to feel it and the group is going to go down. That would be it.
Yeah, very cool. Well, Jacqueline, I'm going to go ahead and end the recording here so that way our listeners can go and find your Instagram. And I'll be sure to include all of those details where they can find you, including your Instagram username, give a direct link so that way they can hop on over to Instagram and follow you and find all those wonderful memes that you're sharing. I'm going to go ahead and end the recording, and we can stick around and chit-chat for a little bit more if you like. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening to the Pillars of Freedom podcast. Joining us today, Ms. Jackeline Torres, and her amazing journey of every 3 or 4 months finding those big decisions. And if you guys want to continue to find, follow, and grow with Jackeline, go on over to Instagram. She's going to be available. She wants to connect in decent ways. And thank you for taking the time to listen to us. And I hope you guys enjoyed yourself today, made progress today, and grew today. We'll take care, and we'll catch you next time.